Welcome back. President Donald Trump's address to the United Nations General Assembly marking its 80th anniversary has ignited fierce debate with a bold America First stance. In a 40-minute speech marred by technical glitches like a stalled escalator and teleprompter issues, Trump blasted the UN as ineffective, touted U.S. economic and military wins, and also issued stark warnings on migration, climate policies, and global conflicts. He called open borders an invasion, slammed renewable energy as a scam, and urged nations to buy American fossil fuels. Trump also accused China and India of fueling Russia's war in Ukraine, demanded that Gaza hostages are released, and warned Iran on nuclear ambitions while announcing a US-led AI task force for global security reactions. Well, the response has been split sharply. Supporters have praised his strength, while critics, including the UN chief Guterres, described the speech as divisive. As protests flared outside, Trump's words left the world stage tense. Let's in fact begin by talking about the US president's blame game. President Trump zeroed in on India and China as the primary funders of Russia's war in Ukraine, accusing them of propping up Moscow by continuing massive purchases of discounted Russian oil. China and India funding the war through their imports is what Trump thundered. He also ripped NATO allies for similar hypocrisy, vowing tougher US sanctions to end the conflict. Indian officials, though, dismissed the claims as misguided, while global markets jittered on this rhetoric.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products.
KP Fabian, former diplomat, is joining us on the broadcast. KP Fabian, what do you make of Donald Trump's once again allegation that India and China are in fact fueling this Russian war in Ukraine?
One, Trump's speech was not a study in good manners. Normally, the speech is supposed to be 15 minutes or a little more. He spoke for 56 minutes. Second, he was constantly criticizing Biden. It was a tirade against Biden, as though Trump was still a candidate. Thirdly, he spoke about $17 trillion investment. No, he's wrong, factually wrong. And then, about climate change, it's a con job. Well, you know what is happening, what has happened in California, wildfires, and the typhoon in Philippines and China yesterday, and perhaps continuing today. Then, you see, he spoke about, China and India, sort of financing the war in Ukraine. He is absolutely wrong because America itself is importing palladium, uranium, fertilizer and all that. So on the whole, it was a boastful speech claiming his credentials, projecting his credentials for Nobel Peace Prize, and there was no reference to the global south. And in the case of Gaza, he did not have a word to say about the more than 65,000 human beings killed by Israel. And he went on saying, absolutely incorrectly, that recognition of the state of Palestine will be a reward to Hamas.
Arvind Tejawat, foreign affairs expert, is also with us live. Arvind, once again, these allegations being leveled by Donald Trump. He's also called up the EU allies on their hypocrisy. The EU has not leveled similar sanctions despite Trump urging them on India, on China. But once again, Trump continuing this assault. Arvind, can you hear me? Okay, I think we're having some trouble there with our guest. But in a stunning pivot following his fiery UNGA speech, President Donald Trump has also taken to Truth Social, declaring Ukraine, with Europe's backing, could reclaim all its pre-war territory from a weakened Russia, branding a paper tiger mired in economic woes like gasoline shortages and war-draining budgets. Trump zeroed in on NATO, calling for time, patience and financial support from the alliance to make victory possible, while committing the US to keep supplying weapons for NATO to do what they want with them. This comes after Trump in a Zelensky meeting bluntly endorsed NATO members shooting down Russian aircrafts, breaching their airspace, escalating calls for direct confrontation amidst recent incursions. The shift from Trump's past skepticism has NATO leaders buzzing. Allies like France's Macron praise the optimism, but hawks worry it signals deeper U.S. entanglement. Well, joining us now is KP Fabian, former diplomat. KP Fabian, what do you make of Donald Trump's comments on NATO and also on the Russia-Ukraine conflict?
We have to understand about Trump that he is mercurial, that he can change his opinion, well, within a few hours. So before commenting on one opinion given by Trump, say A, we should wait for the next opinion B. But having said that, I do not think it's going to make much difference to the situation in Ukraine, because Trump has also sort of, diluted it by saying that if European Union does something, then only he will do it. So Trump is sort of talking, if I may say so, incoherently.
Right. From these comments, of course, though, that have come in from the U.S. President, Ambassador Fabian, do you believe we are anywhere closer to the end of the Russia-Ukraine conflict or not?
I think so. And see, what we have to understand is that Russia has a local military advantage unless and until NATO troops are on the ground. And NATO troops will never be on the ground. Therefore, Russia's local military advantage continues despite all the arms and financial support and diplomatic support which the West can give. And if the war continues, Russia will take in more territory, more Russians and Ukrainians will be killed. It is better for Zelensky or his successor to settle it now and wait for an opportunity later.
At the UN General Assembly, President Trump delivered a stark message on the Israel-Palestine war. He condemned the recent recognitions of Palestinian statehood by allies like France, the UK, Canada and Australia as a reward for Hamas terrorism that undermines peace efforts. He spoke amidst the escalating Gaza strikes with over 65,000 Palestinians killed since the 7th of October 2023. Trump insisted the conflict must end immediately, rejecting any two-state push as it rewards the group holding Israeli hostages. He demanded the urgent release of the remaining 48 captives, including 20 believed to be alive, declaring, "We have to get it done. We want all of them back, alive or as bodies for their families." Trump reiterated U.S. solidarity with Israel, vowing no concessions until hostages return, and met with Netanyahu on the sidelines to discuss retaliation against the recognitions.
As everyone knows, I have also been deeply engaged in seeking a ceasefire in Gaza. Have to get that done. Have to get it done. Unfortunately, Hamas has repeatedly rejected reasonable offers to make peace. We can't forget October 7th, can we? Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities.
KP Fabian, former diplomat, is with us live on this big story. Ambassador Fabian, President Trump also weighing in on the Gaza conflict. What do you make of what he said on the way forward for the conflict, and also the fact that he wants all the hostages back before any sort of talks happen?
He is willing or capable of seeing the big picture. As we all know, with his permission, Netanyahu attacked Qatar. Why? Because he wanted to make sure that the Hamas delegation will not be able to respond to Trump's own terms of a ceasefire to Qatar, the mediator. So, having forgotten that, Trump is talking through his hat. And I don't think he is sincere. He just wants to get the Nobel Peace Prize. And he sort of says so much about human beings killed. But, you know, with a one phone call, President Reagan stopped Menachem Begin the bombing of Beirut, that was 1982. And if Trump doesn't want to do it, well, he's not discharging his presidential responsibilities in any responsible manner.
Yes. In fact, we also have Arvind Tejawat, Foreign Affairs expert, with us now on the broadcast. Arvind Tejawat, if you can hear me now. The fact, of course, is that President Trump has spoken on a host of issues, but pertaining to his comments on the conflict in Gaza, he's also interestingly called out the countries who are seeking to recognize the Palestine state, as some world leaders have done during their speeches at the UNGA, Arvind.
I suppose that what the Trump is doing is a completely hypocrisy. The reason behind it that with Israel, they almost killed more than 70,000 people over there. It was a genocide, basically. They were killing the children's women without any reason. And even the Hamas terrorist is not still, they are out of reach. So whatever the Israel, the Benjamin Netanyahu and the Trump did altogether is not justified at all. And now he is saying that they are willing to go for the peace and they wanted to settle down all the things. So it's a great hypocrisy. And contrary, I suppose the India has get nothing out of his Israel policy because actually the few days back, the Saudi Arabia has go for the treaty with the Pakistan, the defense treaty and all. But at the moment, the India, if I remember that at the time of the India has supported Egypt to occupy the Canal River. So I suppose we need the same policy where we can protect our interest, and whatever the Trump is saying is not fair at all after killing 70,000 and more people. Over to you.
Ambassador